Hello, this is Dr. Rhadi Ferguson, 2004 Olympian, four-time national judo champion, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and undefeated mixed martial arts fighter. I'm here to speak with you today about the state of the sport and art of judo. This would be kind of similar to a State of the Union address without it being a State of the Union address. I had the opportunity to travel to Miami, Florida to attend the International Judo Federation's 2014 referee and coaching seminar slash clinic. It was an excellent opportunity to learn about the sport, the new developments of the sport, and how judo is changing in terms of how it is going to be refereed and therefore coached. I want to speak with you today about judo in particular because there are a lot of facets of judo. There's the sports part of judo, there's the martial arts part of judo, there's the self-defense part of judo. There is judo from the eyes of the referee, from the eyes of the coach, from the eyes of the practitioner, and from the eyes of a martial arts school owner. I think that we all have to begin to look at judo differently. Sitting around and arguing about the changes that are made in a sport are somewhat futile. This, the rules aren't going to change. There's nowhere that you can send a strong letter. There are people who are going to agree with you, and there are people who are going to disagree with you. At the end of the day, the people who are at the top of the sport understand exactly what the sport needs in order to keep the sport where it is. Case in point, the sport of judo is an absolutely phenomenal sport. It has changed over the years since its inception into the Olympics in 1964 to where it is today in 2014. The particular changes that had to be made were made not only for the benefit and safety of the practitioners, but also for it to maintain its mainstay position as an Olympic sport. I'm sure that all of us would be sad one day if Olympics was pulled. If judo was pulled out of the Olympics and we could no longer flick our television channels or get on the internet and watch some of our favorite players compete at the Olympic Games. Whatever has to be done or whatever changes need to be made in order to keep our sport in the Olympics, I am in agreement with. I am a coach. Therefore, I look at the sport from the lens of a coach. I'm no longer a practitioner. If I was a practitioner in terms of practicing the sport to play it as a professional, I would think about it differently. I'm sure the practitioners who are at the recreational level think about it differently as well. Here's what I want to do today. First and foremost, let's look at the sport through the eyes of a referee. A referee's job is to understand the rules as they are applied, and to try to minimize the gray area as much as possible with the understanding that the gray area that is available has to be looked at through the lens of the spirit of the rules. Meaning, anytime there is a gray area in sport, and there's always a gray area, you have to look at it in terms of the spirit of the rules. Judo right now is no different than ice skating, no different than figure skating, no different than gymnastics. They require judges to make decisions based upon what it is that they see. Every judge is going to have their bias, just like every referee is going to have their bias. Sitting around and speaking about the bias of one particular person and another, again, is nonsensical. Some people have a more traditional approach. Some people like Newaza more. Some people like Tachiwaza more. Some people are going to call mate early. Some people are going to let things go a little bit longer. It's your job as a referee to understand your internal bias, the bias that you bring to the table, and to somewhat try to balance out your particular bias in order to do the best job possible. Yes, you have to understand if you walk around using the term good judo, that you have a bias against certain techniques. I watched film at the IJF seminar. I watched some techniques that I personally thought should have been in Nippon. I am not a seasoned rep, but I heard the talk about good judo and quality judo, and I saw the techniques that were osotogaris and uchimatas and those type of techniques which were given Ippon, and the same throw utilizing a drop sail nagi or an offshoot or a kazuri kataguruma that landed with the same impact were not given Ippon. As a referee, you have to understand what your particular bias is. You may be biased to call that particular throw that is done with a clean, or what you call a good technique, ippon, and the other one was Ari. Whatever your bias is, sit down and have an internal discussion with yourself and find out what that is. And please, as a referee, don't believe that you don't have a bias. You do. If you are a person who looked at the older form of judo as not being good judo, then you have a bias towards this particular style of judo. And those people who use the innovations of the old style to implement those in this particular new style, you're not going to look at the same way or look upon them as favorably. You have to recognize this. It's not good and it's not bad. But in order to be a great referee, you have to accept what your bias is. This particular theme runs along the lines of coaches, referees, and players. All of us have an internal bias that we bring to the table. However, as a referee or a judge, your particular bias has more of an influence on the outcome of a match than anyone else. I just ask, or I implore you to understand, accept, write down, and know what your particular bias is when you look at a match or referee a match. The other thing, as a ref, I would really encourage you to study. I know some referees who study a great deal. Now, I don't want you to only study judo matches. I need for you to study game theory. I need for you to study your opponent. At the end of the day, we can create a marriage between the coaches and the referees as much as we want to. However, the bottom line is that the key opponent, if you will, if you want to look at it, of the referee is the coach, and of the coach is the ref. Now, this isn't a bad thing. They're both necessary in terms of the dialectical experience of judo. The referee comes in with the rules, the backgrounds, and the thesis. The coach comes in and he's the antithesis of the referee, and then we have synthesis. So what you see every 2 to 3 years is you see the body of judo make rules to take the thesis and the antithesis, marry those two together, and then create synthesis, which creates a better sport and possibly better outcomes of the sport so that judo can exist where it exists right now in the Olympic Games. It's not good. It's not bad. Both are necessary in order for advancement of the sport. I thought it was absolutely fantastic when I was in Miami, Florida, to see the coaches and the referees actually communicating back and forth, not necessarily during the meeting, but during the lunch, in the hallways, in the evening, at night, kind of speaking about what they would do and the changes that they would make per the new rule set. These things are necessary for the sport to grow. There's nothing greater in any particular art than innovation. The innovation of the coaches and the players are what makes judo exciting. It's what keeps me in the game and allows me to continue to coach as a thinker. I really enjoy thinking about the sport. I think the new rules provide me with a new opportunity to play a game of chess, and that is the way that I look at it. As a referee, I really encourage you to study. Study game theory, not just judo. Don't just watch judo matches, but study game theory. I know there's a lot of things for you to study as the new rules have come out, but you have to study game theory. You have to study some of the things that coaches would do so that your eye is already tuned for the particular response that is going to be illustrated from the stimulus provided. Case in point, when I was speaking with some referees this past weekend in Miami, well, in Fort Lauderdale, they asked me, well, what do you think about thing X or thing Y? And I told them, I said, well, I don't really think about that particular thing because whatever rule is set is already in concrete. So thinking about the rule is it's not wise for me. My job is to think about the response because the stimulus has already been made. Case in point, there was a situation during the meeting where they addressed the bridging. If you bridge on your shoulder, you bridge on your head, or you bridge anyway, the responses are going to be ippon because they don't want students being taught to bridge out of a movement. So that move is going to be automatic ippon.